Welcome to Bunch Formation, your new favorite college football podcast. I am Chris Vannini. And David, you know what I'm excited for this weekend?
Big meaty man slapping meat.
I like it. That's good, Chris. I am David Ubben, and I am hoping that Johnny Manziel can be on the sidelines for this podcast, just cheering us on while we record. I'm hoping maybe he can come by.
He's showing up everywhere now. He's giving advice to Diego Pavia. He's responding to John Mateer.
He's got a lot of time on his hands, Chris. He's got time.
He's coming back into our lives. That drop, by the way, I played. That's WWE wrestler Big E, also known as former Iowa defensive lineman Etor Ewan. Big, beefy, muscular guy wrestler who always talked about how his favorite wrestling matches were the big guys going at it against each other. And that drop on his old podcast from back in the day is hilarious. So anytime we got
Chris, who is your favorite big guy? I was always sort of drawn to what do they call him? The Giant, not Andre, but Paul White.
Paul White,
changed
the
his
Big
name
Show.
To Big Show, yeah. Mm-hmm.
He played college basketball somewhere. I forget where. Kevin Nash played at Tennessee. The Undertaker played at somewhere in Texas. So might have been Kent State actually at the Big Show. Maybe.
We always talk about Chris is an actual wrestling fan. I am a fake wrestling fan. I sort of enjoy it. I just don't have space for my life in it, and I don't have nearly the same institutional knowledge. But you know
what you're not a fake fan of, and that is baseball. You're just not a fan at all, understandably.
No.
Right? So anybody watching on YouTube, I'm currently wearing my Detroit Tigers hat. We are recording as the second game of the Wild Card Series is going on. So as a Detroit native, I say, eat 'em up, Tigers. So that's it for wrestling and baseball and everything. We got college football to talk about. This is going to be a fun episode. We are going to talk a lot about teams we have not talked about much this season. And when we say we love college football, we love all of college football. And sometimes we get too wrapped up in the top 25 teams and what's going on there. But this is a weekend without a loaded slate. So we're going to, as we get into the game previews, talk about a lot of teams we've maybe overlooked a bit and give some of them their props. I think that'll be fun. If you haven't checked out in the show notes, we've got timestamps there for you to jump ahead. It may actually be a couple minutes after the listed time because ads get put in after the fact. But if you want to jump around, that is there. Please send all your feedback to bunchformationpod@gmail.com. We're going to have some mailbag questions in here as well. We've been meaning to get back to a mailbag, so that is important to get to. But first, we have to talk about the 5-star reviews. And we mentioned on the last show, we didn't have any more. We got a bunch more. We won't go all through them now. This will last us a couple of hours. So thank you, everybody, for those. It really helps the show. We know there's a lot of shows out there. This is a new thing. First review on Apple from FAU Alex. Finally writing a review because of how much I related to David's question on why 3-year-olds wake up screaming. He's in the exact situation, and I feel the pain. On a real note, great college football podcast with great insight across all college football, including the group of 6. Let's go Florida Atlantic. David, your parenting talk connected with people.
Well, listen, that's the realest note. It happened again today. Basically, whenever she wakes up, it's just blood-curdling screams for no reason, apparently. And this is not – we have no end in sight. So for now, I'm just waiting for our 1-year-old to not enter in that stage of life. But shout out to all the parents out there because it is we're in the thick of it. We got 2 toddlers. It's a little messy around here.
There you go. And another review from YO23765. I love that these guys, respected national journalists, don't take themselves too seriously while still bringing great insight and information. I will ask, as a tortured Arkansas fan, that we retire the John L. Smith smile soundbite. It's a bit traumatizing.
No, it's more relevant than ever now. We might get another. Listen, Chris, by the time you listen to this episode, John L. Smith might be on Arkansas staff. He might be a coordinator again at Arkansas. So, no, the John L. Smith soundbite will continue living on. Absolutely not taking that out. Come on, guys. Let's have some respect for history.
I will not play it here out of respect for that. And as we're recording, the Guardians just hit a home run against my Tigers in the 8th because the Tigers blew it again. One more comment from Rebel John on Spotify. This is one of the great college football podcasts, and it's helping me get back into the sport. Does it help that Ole Miss are headed for Atlanta? Yes, but the mix of insightful takes and random debates on this pod sure help too. P.S. How would you explain the Bobby Petrino story to a non-college football family member trying and failing so far? I would say, and it's not meant to be so literal, but you catch your spouse cheating on you, you divorce them, and then you want to get back together because hey, the relations, so to speak, were really great, and you think you can get that back. That's my comparison. What do you think?
Maybe the money was great. Maybe you fallen on hard times and they were making, well, for lack of a better term, Bobby Petrino money, and you're like, hey, you remember those times? Those were good times. Life was a lot easier then than when we were, losing by 40 to Notre Dame. I'd like to beat Ohio State. Maybe we could try that. So I said on the last show, Chris, winning is a drug, along with many other things. So
Yes.
Godspeed to you, Arkansans. However this goes, we'll see. It's going to be
Yes.
interesting. The coup has happened. Bobby's in control. All of the Pittman defensive lieutenants are out of there.
And with that, but no media scrum this week, no real big news to kind of get into, but we do have some takes. We do have some topics we want to talk about. And for that, we're going to break out a segment we haven't done in a bit. And that is the heat check.
Analytics. Throw them in the garbage.
By the way, did you catch Gus Johnson was talking analytics with Joel Klatt, by the way?
I didn't hear the full clip. It didn't go as viral as last time, but listen, Gus, I will say, what game was it that Gus was on this weekend? That was like incredible. I forget what it was.
USC, Illinois.
That's right. And we had some vintage Gus. He was back. It was I was texting with some of my college friends. It's a little bit like going to see like a Bob Dylan concert where you can respect maybe what's happening now because you appreciate what it once was, but the voice is a little bit shot. It's the voice is not perhaps what it once was. Maybe one too many March Madnesses over the years, but I love Gus.
Yeah. So, okay, first thing I want to talk about here, that is the Pat McAfee kick contest that he does on College Game Day. And it's not really serious, but it's
kind of serious.
I like the kick segment. It's like the second most popular thing on the show. I did a story on College Game Day coming into the season, and everybody on College Game Day told me that is really Pat McAfee's money that he's giving away. So shout out to him. Someone also sent me a picture of a check that they had gotten from McAfee. Be careful with that. There's numbers on there that should not be public. But and so I love the segment. However, we have seen over the last couple of weeks these guys or these people selected then letting their friend do the kick. So to be selected, it's like the first, I want to say like 300 people or so that show up early in the morning. They get into a raffle and then you pull the name from the raffle. A couple of these people are letting their friend do the kick instead for them. And this kid at Penn State, the friend who kicked, was a soccer player, and he nails the kick with nothing. I feel like it's violating the spirit of the rule here, right?
So two things. One, knowing my performance at the national championship game this year, I hope to one day be called upon as a ringer.
Yes,
in one of these because I feel like I could do it.
David and I, it's on social media somewhere. David and I, we went to the National Championship Fan Fest and we kicked field goals and did various things. We both made them very well. So if you need to if you need someone to kick a field goal, we are available.
Call us. Secondly, the whole point of the segment, which has kind of been lost now, was people love to be abusive to kickers when they miss a kick, and they didn't respect how hard it is. It's pretty hard for the average person. And we're losing sight of that now that we're bringing in these ringers in game day and just smashing these kicks through and turning Pat McAfee broke. If we see Pat McAfee out there on the street, if I'm going out to the side and just trying to go get some gas and I see Pat McAfee panhandling, I'll know why.
No, I mean, like, the segment's fun. I think the Miami friend didn't make the kick. But the other complaint I had previously was when the guy would miss the first one last year, McAfee would then up it on the second kick. So you're kind of incentivized to miss it on the first one. He's also giving out more money, I think, this year than he was before. But I'm mostly just joking around. It's fun. But if you're going to be the one to kick it yourself, man. Don't have your friend do it. Do it. Have some pride, I think. Anyway, that was kind of jokey. But now let's talk about the AP poll, which I think everybody seems to have like an opinion on. for some reason.
Well,
I'm
not
someone
everybody.
who ranks.
Not everybody.
I'm someone who ranks all 136 teams. I like this stuff. You don't care for this at all, but most fans do care about the rankings. And we've had like several weeks in a row now of like people just attacking the AP poll, calling it criminal, calling it a joke, calling it whatever, for mostly understandable reasons. Like Joel Klatt was upset that Washington wasn't getting a single vote in the poll, to which I was like, well, their opponents are 1-10 versus FBS teams, and they haven't played anybody. When they play Ohio State, they'll change. They played, they got blown out. It is what it is. And Josh Pate, he was upset where Vanderbilt is ranked. Vanderbilt is ranked apparently like in the mid-teens, and he had them like in the top 10. And he called it a joke, and it's ridiculous. That's not that much of a difference. And also, it's September. Like we got it. Like these things evolve over time, and where a team is ranked right now does not really actually matter. And BYU fans, they're upset that they're ranked low. They haven't played anybody either. But most everybody has played everybody at some point. And now we have an actual thing to debate in the AP poll, which is who's overrated, who's underrated. David.
Yes.
Let me pitch this to you. Tell me if you agree. I think Penn State is overrated in the AP poll at number 7 because they have the same resume as Texas, who's right there at number 9. Neither of them have a good win. Both of them have a good loss to a top 2 team on the road. Like to me, they're pretty much the same. I have Texas at 11, Penn State at 13. Again, very close. Do you think those teams deserve top 10 spots right now?
Yes, because Chris, this is part of why I don't fill out a top 25. Is when I'm looking at the rankings, it's a very vibes-based eye test for me. The resume matters, but when you do the 136, you get deep in the resumes. I'm not going to get as deep in the resume. I trust my eyes when I watch a team, and when I watch Penn State play, it hasn't been great. But that's one of the 10 best teams in the country. I feel very confident in saying that. And so if people want to put a team way up because their resume is what it is, then I'm willing to do that temporarily and allow those things to sort themselves out. But generally, if I'm looking at Penn State and you don't think they're one of the 10 best teams in the country, I'm not sure what you're watching. And also, as flawed as that team is, and I do think they're flawed, there's a baseline there that is pretty respectable and an upside that's possible that a lot of the teams don't. So I'm good. I'm good with Penn State being as high as they are.
That's fair. My only real gripe with the AP poll this week is Florida State, which dropped from, I believe, number 8 to number 18 for the loss at Virginia. That to me is nuts because they have a win over Alabama, a win that is now a lot better because Alabama then won at Georgia. Alabama is currently ranked 10th in the poll. And Florida State's loss comes on the road in double overtime on a short week, playing on a Friday against a team that is now 4-1 and looks like pretty good. I have Florida State up at 8. I dropped them from, I think, 4 to 8, but 1 spot ahead of Alabama because we're a month into the season. I think these two teams right now are generally on the same tier. And when that is the case, Florida State goes ahead. You can't do transitive property forever because then NC State beat Virginia, beat Florida State. Like it has to stop at some point. But when I group teams generally on kind of where I think they are in the same tier, I've got Florida State, Bama in the same tier right now. We'll see what happens with Miami this week. But I can't believe Florida State dropped that far. Like that is really not getting benefit of the doubt.
I would have had them in the 10 to 12 range. I'm with you on this. Florida State is an interesting mix of eye test and resume because you mentioned like they have the Bama win, which obviously got better. Bama, another sort of flawed team as sort of everyone is at this point, but you can't deny that the floor for Bama is pretty high. And Florida State won that game pretty convincingly. It wasn't maybe as bad as people will say it is in hindsight, but it was a convincing win. This reeks to me of just Virginia disrespect and pollsters not paying attention to what Virginia has actually been doing and not watching them. Like Virginia is probably a fringe top 25 team with a resume that obviously makes them deserve being in the top 25.
They're currently
Florida State Florida State when you watch them, in my head, they look like an 8 or 9 win team, like a borderline top 20 team. But when you go beat Bama, I mean, yeah, I'd have them in the 10 to 12 range personally. The dropping 10 spots, I don't know how you explain that any other way than people think Virginia's bad because they've been bad. But if you watch them this year, they're not at all. They're pretty solid.
And that takes us to kind of a general conversation about the AP poll, which we did a couple of weeks ago. I do my 136 rankings. They come out on Monday. I spent all of Sunday doing it. It takes time. The AP poll, you need your vote in by like 9 or 10 a.m., I think, and on a Sunday, and then it's up by the middle of the day. That is a pretty quick turnaround when you have a lot of writers who are traveling, who are at their games, who haven't seen everybody. I've for a while thought the poll should come out one day later. Bring them out on a Monday, so they don't get sucked up by the NFL attention. And also, you've given every time to actually look at everything, because like you may have forgotten a USF result or something like that. That was obviously a mistake a couple of weeks ago. She didn't admit it was a mistake, and that created a whole big hoopla.
Yeah,
but like. I think people just trashing the AP poll, it's happened like 3 weeks in a row now. Like, you got to chill out a little bit. It's September. We don't have that many data points for a lot of teams. I don't know how anybody can just sit here and say, well, that team's clearly amazing, other than, Ohio State and Oregon. You can't, that team's terrible. Like, these things change week to week. Like, I don't think we need to overreact to where one team is the poll, because there's going to be a lot more changes to come. When we have something like Florida State, that is a real thing we can talk about and discuss. But I don't want to have a debate about a team who hasn't played anybody yet. Sorry, BYU. I don't have you in my top 25 yet because you haven't played anybody. And that's not your fault. That doesn't mean you can't move up. It just takes some time.
I'm just hearing Colorado disrespect, Chris. That's all I'm hearing.
Well, look, that was a close game on the road. So, like, it feels like it's becoming a thing now to, like, jump on hating the AP poll as like a way to prove that you know ball. I know ball better than the AP voters because I think this team who's 4-0 should be ranked 5 spots higher. Clearly, the AP poll voters have no idea what they're talking about. Like, you're just hearing this all over the place, and it's like, guys, nobody really knows anything right now. Okay, like I can't have such a strong take on where somebody is other than a Florida State because you have a direct comparison with an Alabama. So, like, at a time when also, Tony Petitti and the Big Ten are kind of making this push that we don't want a committee to set the playoff. We want auto bids and all this kind of stuff. Does feel like a little bit of that narrative is trying to be spread to delegitimize the AP poll. And yeah. So Dave, what do you think about preseason polls? One last thing on this, because that's another topic that comes out a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree with all the reasons why we shouldn't have preseason polls. But the problem is if you kill the official ones, then the unofficial ones are just going to come out, which might be more accurate, honestly, if it's a smaller group and you get people that are either regional journalists or writers or national, and they watch a wider swath of games. Like, I've covered one team before. I mean, this is the beef with the AP poll, preseason or otherwise, is there's not, if you're covering one team, which if you're looking at the AP poll, there's 60 voters, right? I would bet you 45 to 50 of them just cover one team, something like that. There's some national people that vote. It's hard. Your job is to cover one team, and then a lot of it is just score watching. Like, okay, well, what happened there? What happened there? And sometimes you miss one, like the USF Florida situation, and you just didn't see. And scores lie. We see that all the time. And so, yeah, of course, it's not going to be the greatest poll in the world, but that's what the Athletic 136 is for, Chris.
Exactly. And it's, we've talked about this before, but like, you cannot want preseason polls to exist. That's fine. It's never going to happen. So stop saying it. It is a waste of a debate to have.
Well, we already got the committee's rankings, which don't come out until like week 8, which is always what people talked about. And you got the thing that mattered.
You've got the thing you want, which is 1, they don't do their first ranking until 2/3 of the way through the season. 2, they do it on a Tuesday, so it's not the day after a game. 3, they've got scores of data and computers and all these things, and they get together in person to discuss and hash it out. Like, that is what you want. This idea that, the CFP just looked at the AP poll and goes with that is not true. In fact, the numbers show that they typically are more likely to spit out what the BCS computers did. Like that's if you look at what there's this BCS Know How Twitter account, and they'll always post like CFP rankings and BCS computer rankings. And they're usually like pretty close. So this idea that the AP poll has some grand power to determine who makes the playoff is really, I think, nonsense. And really lost in all of this is the coaches poll is like not even acknowledged anymore. Like it's kind of wild how nobody takes it seriously. By the way, in this week's coaches poll, Georgia was one spot ahead of Alabama. So, and there was not an uproar about that. It just kind of shows you that the coaches poll, which has been around.
Well, I think part of that, Chris,
decades.
though, is all the coaches poll ballots are private until the last week of the year. And so, like, I think with the AP poll, it's easier to say, oh, I hate where this team is. Let me go see where this team was low, and you can go see all the public ballots, and then you can go harass people on social media and tell them they should kill themselves and say all kinds of other horrendous stuff. People on the internet saying that's not at all projecting or, tapping into some self-loathing or anger issues that people have. It's definitely nothing like that, obviously, Chris. But I a lot of the internet sort of trends and culture I don't particularly understand, namely like just the license to rage at people and stuff people would say to people, like if you like Chris, these fans, if you ran into like, these voters, if they were out to dinner with their family, you would not say half the stuff that people say to these people on social media. Like this is a cultural rot issue. So
it's like, and I like the debate. I mean, I believe me, I read the comments on the 136 and they're not hundreds of people telling me great job. So like they
usually are though. I try to leave at least 6 in there, Chris, that are telling you you're doing a great job.
The debate is the point. Like that is fine. We'll start debating when there's things to debate. And to me, Washington or BYU or someone who hasn't played anybody is simply not worth the discussion until they play somebody. And now we are mostly finally there. So now I will engage in AP poll discussion. I will not engage somebody should be 5 spots higher because they haven't played anybody. So one coaches poll though, they really need to, I do wonder like how much longer the coaches poll will survive. Like it doesn't really matter. I think technically the AFCA runs it, but like nobody cares about it. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
However, the coaches poll trophy is still the best trophy. It is the crystal football that you always saw in the BCS days. That should be the national championship trophy. That should still be instead of the
lipstick trophy is bad.
I don't like that the CFP does that. The coaches poll trophy, get rid of the coaches poll, but take that trophy, make that the new CFP trophy. Hope one of your recruits on a visit to Florida doesn't shatter it, as happened one time. That's the only thing about the coaches poll that matters now is that trophy's still there, but nobody even like you have it in the booth, but it's not like you don't take it out and celebrate with it. I don't know. I do miss the coaches poll trophy.
Yeah.
So, all right. And with that, we got some mailbag questions from you guys, so we are going to get into that now.
I'm not going to, so quit asking.
Question here from Joe Mills. Which would be more surprising to you both? Ole Miss runs the table and finishes undefeated, or Notre Dame loses another game? Dave, I'll let you go first.
Listen, Ole Miss is not going undefeated. I can tell you that with reasonable certainty. Notre Dame could lose, but I'm definitely going Ole Miss here. So they've got a weird game against Washington State at home in 2 weeks, and they go to Georgia, to Oklahoma, South Carolina. Then they've got the Citadel, Florida, Mississippi State. They're not going undefeated. They're losing at least 1, probably 2 of those games. Shout out to the Citadel. Be careful with those guys. They'll catch up on you. Yes, I'm going with Ole Miss running the table would be more surprising. It's just the gap between 1 and 7 in the SEC is minuscule, and you're going to have to win like 4 close games in a row to do that. So I'm definitely going Ole Miss running the table would be more surprising to me. Notre Dame, we've shown they're flawed. There's a lot of pressure on them now. Like if they lose, they play a bunch of like okay teams. I don't know how you'd be surprised by losing. People have this idea that Notre Dame, the rest of their schedule is garbage. It's not good, but they play a bunch of teams capable of beating them.
Yeah, I would agree. Ole Miss being undefeated would be more surprising to me than Notre Dame. Even, USC, a couple other games. This team isn't last year's Notre Dame. We'll see. Question from Ben Weinberg. Is Pat Fitzgerald a serious candidate for a P4 with winning expectations? Aside from Iowa, where he's become close to the program, how could Wisconsin or another look past 1-17 in his last season and a half? Very good question, Ben. And a conversation I literally had with an athletic director a couple of days ago was like, what kind of market will there be for Pat Fitzgerald? In case you missed it, a couple of weeks ago, Pat Fitzgerald settled the lawsuit with Northwestern for wrongful termination. And Fitzgerald seemed to get pretty much everything he wanted because Northwestern basically apologized. They said Fitzgerald's great. They said he didn't know about the hazing going on in the program. Tried to kind of clear him as well as they could. And that puts him back out onto the coaching market. He is close to Iowa because I think he has a kid who plays on the team.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I saw he was like in the stands wearing Iowa gear on Saturday. I had no idea why or how that happened.
It's either on the team or on the staff. I don't remember, but yeah, our friend Scott Docterman sent a picture. If Pat Fitzgerald were to retire, if Kirk Ferentz were to retire, would Fitzgerald move in? I honestly don't think so. I think the AD there, Beth Getz, is a really smart, sharp person, and she knows she can do better. But Ben makes a good point here, which is Pat Fitzgerald, before he was fired for the hazing, he was not doing well. They had gone 1-11 the year prior, and they had a good 2020 season, but that was kind of a weird season. And so he's still a relatively young guy, but I find it very hard to think he's going to get a P4 job out the gate.
Yeah.
It might be one of those.
Does it matter to you, Chris, that once he was gone, Northwestern, when people had sort of left them for smoking crater status, was like thriving? That doesn't seem like a ringing endorsement of Fitzgerald to say all the stuff, forget the off the field stuff for a second. That's sort of a secondary thing we're talking about. If you're just talking football, that doesn't tell me, we got to crawl over broken glass and take a PR hit to hire this guy. I think it's defensible based on what we know publicly about the hazing lawsuit and all this stuff. It's defensible, I think, to fire him in a way that it's probably not for a lot of other disgraced coaches. But you're still going to take a PR hit. There's going to be people who don't like that. And I think criticizing that is fair. But I just think that there is a case for it. Whether or not you want to make that case is up to you. But there's going to be a PR hit. So, you got to have to really want to hire him. And based on the football, I'm with you, Chris. I don't know that the football was good enough to warrant that.
But not many, this wasn't, the mid 2010s when NFL teams were interested in Pat Fitzgerald and Michigan was interested in him. It was not the case by the end of his run, especially he had not shown an ability to compete with the NIL transfer space that we are now in. And Northwestern was always going to be at a disadvantage for that. But that's another factor that you just don't know yet. So if I had to guess where Fitzgerald lands, probably a G5 head coaching job. I think he hasn't been, he'd been a head coach since 2006. So it's he's barely been an assistant in his life. So it's possible he could get a D coordinator job at a P4 school. I think that's very possible as well.
Chris, what if I told you he'd never been a coordinator before? I don't think I realized.
There you go. I don't remember what he was.
Recruiting coordinator before he took over. Obviously, with the Randy Walker situation was really sad, but he took that and ran with it. Regardless of the circumstances of getting the job, but he was never a coordinator, and so I don't know if you've never been a coordinator. I'm sure he was very involved in the defensive game planning at Northwestern, but if you've never been a coordinator, I don't know why you're.
He could very well, if he wants to be a head coach, it's probably going to have to be at the G5 level.
Yes,
I could see him getting a D coordinator spot somewhere. He's all-American linebacker. He knows defensive football. So I think those are more likely. And it's easier to kind of fly under the radar there because, look, DJ Durkin got back into coaching. Kendall Briles got back into coaching. Both of those, I believe, thanks to Lane Kiffin, in coordinator type of roles. All right, question from Chris Novak. What's the diagnosis on LSU? A putrid offense so far, and even in a tempered down SEC, do you think they figure it out? There was a little bit of news on Wednesday. Brian Kelly did confirm, I guess, that that Garrett Nussmeier, the quarterback, had an ab strain, not a core injury, and it has healed slower than they would have liked, but he's also on the back end of recovery. He called the idea that there would be any surgery needed as, quote, misinformation. So, Dave, what do you think of that?
I think for me, it poses an interesting question. I've been thinking about this all afternoon when I saw that, which is when you have a quarterback, and for sake of the argument, because we've talked about Quinn Ewers a lot this year, we've seen, there's a lot of this conversation around Arch as well. Is he hurt? If you have a guy that's going to have a microscope on him and he's hurt, do you tell people? I think is a really interesting question. For the last few weeks, the answer to that question was no at LSU. Suddenly this week, the answer is yes. Why is that? I don't know. I think I'd be interested to hear the answer to that. Like, the answer for why you decided to talk about it now is more interesting to me than the injury. The injury confirms what our eyes have seen. Like, I've seen Garrett Nussmeier. I saw him in person twice last year, on the field, watching him throw. I was on the field for the overtime and late in the fourth quarter when he rallied them against Ole Miss. And those throws look very different than throws that I saw him make at Clemson this year when I saw them as well. So I'm not surprised. Like, I think we see that. Like, the zip was not there. The accuracy was not there. He doesn't look right. And for him, as advanced mentally as he is at the quarterback position, there's no reason for it. So I think that, to me, is where this gets interesting, is what do you say about a quarterback who is dealing with an injury? Because on the one hand, if your answer is no, you don't want to risk him getting hit or teams taking advantage of that or having that knowledge. But on the other hand, if you don't tell that, then people will just think your guy stinks now. And
Exactly.
His
Yes.
stock.
That's what I think it was. I think Garrett Nussmeier has been kind of getting dragged, that it's time to basically kind of admit it. And that's fair. In terms of LSU as a whole, it's not just Garrett Nussmeier. You lost like the whole offensive line, several guys who went to the NFL.
Mm-hmm.
You still can't run the ball. And so everybody's just teeing off in passing downs, knowing that you're not going to be able to run the ball very well. And it's just a continuation of last year with just less talent around him. Mm-hmm. And the defense has gotten better. They've tried, the OC Joe Sloan has tried to scheme up some stuff to run the ball in a different way. They just can't run the ball. And so I think that's ultimately what this is. You can't run the ball and your quarterback is hurt. And that leads to where you're at. So, and with that, it's time to get into the game previews. And it's going to be an interesting slate here.
This is for all the Tostitos.
That's right, Brent. Both of us, David. So a pick score update. Both of us went 5-4-1 last week. We are both 25-26-1 on the season. Remember, we decided last week the loser will order Uber Eats from another restaurant to another restaurant.
I feel like it's notable here, Chris. We have to clarify that it has to be the same genre of food.
Sure. Well.
Yes, that's the whole thing.
Okay.
Getting the wings delivered to Buffalo Wild. While, again, a source of derision, I will argue to my dying day that in the full context of me doing that, this was a humanitarian act.
But I feel like getting wings ordered to like McDonald's would be kind of funny too, right?
I feel like getting Burger King Uber Eats to McDonald's is way funnier, and eating it in the McDonald's is much funnier.
Okay. First up, ACC game. We're going to talk about a lot of teams we haven't talked about, but first there's a couple of games with bigger teams. We'll hit that off the bat. Biggest game of the week, I think. Miami at Florida State, 7:30 Eastern, ABC, ACC game of the week. Miami 4.5-point favorite. Florida State's coming off the loss to Virginia. Miami is coming off of a bye, I think. I don't think they played last week.
Yeah, I would have remembered watching them play last week. So either they played nobody. I didn't watch them last week. So either they played nobody or didn't play. So yeah.
My feeling on this game is that Florida State could not tackle at all against Virginia, just for whatever reason. Whether that was a big play or whether that was turning a 3-yard gain into a 5-yard gain to set up a second and manageable, it kept happening. And Miami is going to pound you in the face over and over and over again and try to wear you down in that second half. So it's not just that Florida State lost to Virginia that has me worried about the Noles here. It's that I think Miami is finally the team they've wanted to be, and that maybe doesn't bode well for what Florida State is.
I hear you on this. I just think Florida State is solid. You're going on the road at Tallahassee. Miami, there's the game management issues. I love that they built this team from the inside out. I love their play on the lines. I have some of the same concerns that you do, but I think this is still a Florida State team that I don't think that's the kind of loss that breaks you. I think that's the kind of loss that even with the roster being composed what it is, I think can kind of reinvigorate your team and say, like, we should be better. Like, achieving what we want to achieve in this season is not that far away from us, and Miami holds the key. I think Florida State takes that key this week. I am going to take Florida State to win this game outright at home.
Wow. And I'll say that, like, last year's Florida State team, which was terrible, kept close with Miami until well into the second half. That was a 17-7 game at halftime. It was a 20-7 game until the final minute. And then again, that fourth quarter, Miami pulled away. So I do think you're going to get Florida State's best shot in this game. I'm very, I don't say sad, but it was kind of tough, Florida State not winning this game, because we haven't had a top 10 Miami Florida State game since 2013. And those of us who are now getting old remember the glory days of Miami Florida State in the 80s and the 90s and the early 2000s, and we desperately want that to be back. But I'm going to go, 4.5 is giving 4.5 on the road is a lot. And you got to
a good Florida State team.
Good Florida State team. You know they're going to be fired up. I'm going to go Miami. I don't feel great about it. I think Miami's just really good. I don't think Florida State's talent level is there. I think Miami's got the advantage in the trenches. I think Miami's got the advantage at quarterback. There are not many spots where I think FSU has the advantage. I'm gonna go with Miami. So,
I mean, my head says Miami, but my gut says Florida State. We're sticking with it. I'm going with it.
It's tough. All right, Texas at Florida, 3:30 Eastern ESPN. Texas a 6.5-point favorite on the road. DJ Lagway was in a walking boot, appears to be okay. He has not looked right all season. I do think this is going to be a very low scoring game. Texas has the number one SP plus defense. Florida's number 24. This also, by the way, this is a week in real life. I would not be putting money on like any of these games. Like, this is very much a overmatched team, we think, but the line is a little fishy. What do you think about this?
I think I hate this game. I don't want to watch this game. But I that's a lot of points in a game that's not going to have a lot of points. This feels like a Texas 17, Florida 30 or 13 situation. So I'm going to go with Florida to cover at home in the Swamp. We might get a couple DJ Lagway highlights, but I'm really intrigued to see how Arch looks on the road again. Florida, Chris, have you been to a game at the Swamp?
I've not. I've been to the stadium, but not for a game.
It's incredible, and it is really, really loud. And so I'm really intrigued to see how that goes. It's right on par with Ohio State. Obviously, this defense isn't as good, but it's going to be a test for Arch, and I think they can slow him down. So give me Florida to cover but not win.
Yeah, 6.5. If it was 7, I'd feel a lot better taking Texas. I'm going to take Florida as well. The defense has been very good. It has kept them in the game. It kept them in the LSU game. You know, they're not getting run out of the building. I don't trust Arch yet, especially on the road. So you're going to give me 6.5 points at home. I will take that. I will take the Gators as well to lose, but lose close. I guess is what I'll go with. Clemson at North Carolina, noon Eastern ESPN. David is going to be there, and we are demanding that he go to the Ludacris concert at 10 a.m. and
That's
report back on that.
That's the plan. It's going to be surreal in a lot of ways. I assume Belichick will be there. I know he's a huge Ludacris fan.
There's no way, they thought this was going to be a noon game, because UNC, ACC, ESPN, you're all thinking Belichick, Clemson's good. Not a good slate of a weekend. This is going to be an obvious night game for everybody. And then by the time it came time to schedule the game, they realized they were going to have to tell Ludacris, actually, your concert's going to have to be at 10 a.m.
Well, I still don't know why you can't do it post-game. I get, if you lose, the vibes will be down. But, even if it's a night game, it's still, a 4 p.m. concert. We're not talking about, Coachella here. It's going to be weird to go on during the daytime anyway. You wouldn't want him to go on at, 11:30 or something if you play a night game. But I still think, I don't know why you can't just move the concert to 7 p.m. if you get a noon game. The 10 a.m., I'm going to be there. It's going to be weird. It's going to be hilarious. I'm not 100% sure where it is, but I'm going down there Friday. I got to figure out exactly where that is. UNC's campus, by the way. Have you been there, Chris?
No, we talked about this the first time you went there.
Yeah. I'm
You liked it.
excited to go back because I was there and I was like, man, I kind of wish I had gone here.
Are you going to be back? Are you going to be back home for like the later slate? Are we going to be able to do an after dark?
No, I don't think we'll be able to do it after dark. I'm going to go. So my loose plan is cover the game at noon, right, and then find a spot to watch like the primetime games, and then like 10 o'clock drive back home. It'd be like an hour 45.
Okay.
Kind of listen to the late game.
I'll be home. I may try to do one myself, a shorter one. Done them a couple of times. I just like after the games. I just like talking to people and see what people think. So
maybe I'll be on my phone on the road or something, Chris. We'll see.
Yeah. So stay tuned to the Bunch Formation YouTube channel. That might be one we just do YouTube only and not put it on the feed if it's just me. But if you want to talk after the game, let's look into the after the night games, I should say. All right, now we're going to move into talking about teams we have not talked about much this season and deserve a lot of attention. And that starts with probably the second biggest game of the week, maybe the biggest game of the week, actually.
Yeah.
Vanderbilt at Alabama. Alabama's a 10.5-point favorite. The game's at 3:30 Eastern, ABC. We've talked about Alabama. We know what they are. I want to talk about Vanderbilt here.
Yes.
Their win total in Vegas coming into the season was 4.5.
Mm-hmm.
They are 5-0 right now. Before September even ended, they already hit that. Diego Pavia is completing 74% of his passes. They were the number 4 rush offense in the country in yards per carry, 13th in yards per attempt. And look, they've played South Carolina. They've played Virginia Tech. They've not played nobody. They went to Virginia Tech and blew them out 31-7. Now Sellers got hurt in that game, but I think Vandy was winning that game anyway.
Mm-hmm.
And Vanderbilt, number 4 in the country in third downs. And if you remember last year's game at Alabama, Vandy went 12 for 18 on third down. They kept drives alive. They kept Jalen Miller off the field. They clinched the game by converting third downs. So this is just a good Vandy team. Like, remember Diego Pavia in the offseason was talking about coming back, wanting to win a natty and all this stuff. And a lot of people kind of laughed at it. Like, I'm not saying they're going to win the national championship or playoff here, but like, this team is so improved, even from a year ago. I really like them.
Yeah. I like Vanderbilt too. Here's my question with Vanderbilt, because when you watch them, they do pass the eye test. This isn't smoke and mirrors. This isn't like, listen, Virginia Tech is not a great team. The thing that worries me is they were down double digits at half to Virginia Tech, who's not a good team. And
blew them out in the second half, though.
I know they shut them out in the second half. I recognize that. But I think the question for this game, and it's why I'm picking Alabama, is this a big game for Alabama? And I think the internalized embarrassment from a year ago, I don't know how that doesn't sink in any other time, especially last year. I don't know that Bama's up to hand out a beating to Vanderbilt. But the amount of frustration and embarrassment that came out of that game last year from everyone involved with Alabama, I have to think that there's a renewed level of focus. And it'll be interesting to see what the crowd is. I don't think the crowd would have been fired up under normal circumstances. I don't think this is normal circumstances for Alabama. I think you're going to get an Alabama team in this game that wants to prove a point and maybe not erase what happened last year. I don't think you can do that, but can maybe erase some of the narrative that emerged out of that game last year. I like Alabama to flex in this game. I think they win this game big and figure out some stuff and slow down this offense. I could see Vanderbilt winning it outright, but I think you're going to get an invested Alabama in a way that I don't think you would get normally. I think you're going to get big game Alabama under Kalen DeBoer in this game. And if you do, Vandy's not winning this game. They're not covering it. Give me Bama like 37-24.
So you think Vandy could win this game outright, and you're still giving 10.5 points?
Yeah, because I wouldn't bet my life that we get a invested Alabama, but if we do, and I think we will, then I think Bama proves why they're a 10-point favorite in this game. They're clearly a much better team. Like Vandy, man for man, still is not going to be able to compete. But I think last year that it's a weird stadium where you got to bring your own energy. That's a real thing. Like when teams used to play at Kansas when Kansas was really bad, you'd get one or two teams a year that just didn't bring their own energy and would get dragged into these weird games, like Texas losing to Kansas that one time that got Charlie Strong fired. Like you would see that. And I think last year there was a little bit of that at Vandy, but I think this is going to be a Bama prove-it game.
people forget Vanderbilt lost to Georgia State last year.
Mhm.
Even though they beat Bama, this year they blew out Georgia State, put up 70 on them. I do think like the Kalen DeBoer thing is always in a big game, his teams show up and you get their best. And it's when they're playing a team that's not so good that you don't know what you're going to get. And I think that happened against Vanderbilt last year. They did not take them seriously. I don't see that happening this year. They lost to Vandy.
Yeah.
Vandy's a top 15-ish team. Like, I do think Alabama is going to be completely focused. It is really hard to pick against Pavia getting 10.5 points, though. That's the thing. Like, and Alabama did not run the ball very well, by the way, against Georgia. I'm very curious if they're able to in this game. I'm going to go Alabama too, because I'm going with Alabama to cover 10.5 out of respect for Vanderbilt, because I think Alabama will have their attention.
Yeah.
And that,
I will say, if this game's tied at halftime, Commodores, they're winning it. They're going to win. But I don't think we're going to see that.
Wisconsin at Michigan, noon Eastern on Fox. This is the big noon game. Michigan, a 16.5 point favorite. We've talked about Michigan. Wanted to use this space to talk about Wisconsin, who is dreadful in ways that are kind of hard to comprehend. Wisconsin, the Wisconsin Badgers of Ron Dane, of Monte Ball, of all that, they're 126th in the country in yards per carry on offense. They cannot run the ball at all. However, their defense is actually pretty competitive. They're the number 3 rushing defense in yards per carry, and they've played Alabama. They're not, but the problem is they can't stop the pass. They're 113th in defensive yards per attempt. Their defense actually ranks higher than Michigan's defense in SP Plus. To their credit, the defense has not given up, even though they lost. They were down 20-0 to Maryland at home. And so, like, on paper, what Wisconsin does well actually plays into what Michigan does well, which is run the ball. So that'll be interesting. And then there's the larger picture of Luke Fickell. His buyout is 80% of his remaining contract. That's around $25 million right now. That would be the second highest buyout ever. However, that buyout is mitigated by the money he makes from his next job. And if Luke Fickell's getting fired, he is landing a good job somewhere, whether it be a G5 head coach or a P4 defensive coordinator. So Wisconsin will not have to pay that whole thing out. That plays a factor in these buyouts. Not all buyouts are the same. Some of them are guaranteed, like Jimbo. Some of them are a little bit weird, like Sam Pittman's, which they settled on. But Wisconsin won't have to pay as much as people think they're going to have to pay. And you look at Wisconsin's schedule, they may not be favored in a game for the rest of the year. This could be truly, truly disastrous type of season. So I say all that to say, Dave, just what do you think of the Wisconsin thing right now?
It's not even so much that they're bad. It's that they're bad and like just unwatchable. Like,
yeah,
when you've watched Wisconsin the last couple of years, it's just like, Like,
what are you trying to do? Like, I watch him say, what are you trying to do? What do you want to do?
I always come back to this. At the end of the day, college football is entertainment. When you pay a ticket or you tune into a game, you are doing that to be entertained. It is a lot of other things, but it is at its core entertainment. And I cannot think of many teams in the country that are less entertaining than Wisconsin right now. And that is a problem. You can be not entertaining and win, and people will tolerate it. But the second that you are not entertaining and you're losing, there is a rage that comes out of fans that I think like is reserved for those special cases where not only are you bad, but you're bad and just unwatchable. And that is kind of the territory that Wisconsin is occupying at the moment.
To that point of the rage of fans, there were fire Fickell chants, a lot of empty seats. Did you see what Barry Alvarez said about that, by the way?
No, I missed this.
Barry Alvarez says, if you're going to come to boo, we don't want you, basically. Be there to cheer. Basically, he called out the fans, which is not what you want to be doing. He's not the AD there anymore, but that is not what you want to be doing. It's a real mess. Everybody there still seems very invested in Fickell succeeding. Barry Alvarez loves him. The AD McIntosh loves him. But it gets to the point where, like, not saying you do it now, I don't think. But if you're like 2-8 or something, I don't even know what exactly the record is right now, but like it's you may have no choice, because then it becomes it's more costly to keep him than it is to fire him. And that is
They are
ultimately
2-2,
the decision.
Chris, and they have 5 games against ranked teams left on their schedule, plus Iowa, plus Minnesota on the road and Washington.
Yeah.
So
it's going to be tough. We will be watching on the hot seat spot there, but Michigan getting 16.5 at home. Dave, what do you think?
yeah, I think Michigan lets Bryce Underwood air it out quite a bit here. I just going on the road to the big house. Wisconsin, I watched the first half of that Maryland game, and it was just horrible. There were some bad turnovers and some weird plays. Like, it should have been more competitive than it was. But I'm not a believer in Maryland. So, yeah, give me Michigan here in a laugher.
We will talk about Maryland in a minute, by the way. I will take Michigan as well. That takes us to our Big 12 game of the week. Matchup of undefeateds. Texas Tech going to Houston, 7 o'clock Eastern, ESPN. Texas Tech an 11.5-point favorite on the road going to Houston. Is this the year 3 Willie Fritz bump that we always see? They're 4-0. Connor Wegman, the quarterback formerly of Texas A&M, he's been okay. Like, he looked good in the Colorado game, but kind of against Oregon State. Their offense, they can't really run the ball, but they're not turning the ball over. Defense has been very solid, especially at stopping the pass.
Yeah.
Dave, did you stay out? You didn't stay up for the Oregon State game, did you?
No, I did not. My apologies to the Cougs, but yeah.
In our group chat, it's just me and Antonio Morales. Even Sam, the Houston alum, had gone to bed. Houston comes back down 14 at winless Oregon State. They block a game-winning field goal as time expires to send it to overtime, where they win in overtime. I think Houston's improved, but when I look at the numbers, there's nothing that really jumps out as like Big 12 contender yet. And I think
this team, I did watch them a little bit against Rice. I watched the entire game against Colorado, where Colorado played horrible in that game and was playing the wrong quarterback. Houston doesn't pass the eye test. I think they're going to get bullied on the lines in this game. I am in on Texas. Texas Tech. I mean, here's the thing. Is you can do all those things, but Texas Tech is a different animal on the lines than anything Houston has seen so far this year. And if you're getting destroyed on the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball, I mean, hang on. This is going to be a rough night, and I think that's where Texas Tech is here. Even on the road, Red Raiders get the win here, win big. Give me Texas Tech here in a big game. I'm going to say something like 37, 34 to like 13, something like that.
Yeah, I like Texas Tech as well in this game. By the way, Baron Morton is going to be back, it appears, and he will be starting over Will Hammond, who we'll see if Will Hammond what his deal is in the future, because he looked very good in that game. So, sticking in the Big 12, another gigantic game in this conference. Iowa State at Cincinnati, noon Eastern, ESPN. We've talked about Iowa State a few times on this pod. We have not talked about Cincinnati. And it is time that the Bearcats get their due. They are 4-1.
Or put some respect on them, yeah.
They are number 3 in the country in yards per play on offense. Brandon Sorsby has been great, completing 69% of his passes, a 10-to-1 touchdown interception ratio. He's the team's leading rusher as well. He's got 4 touchdowns on the ground. Manageable schedule the rest of the way. Their pass defense has been very bad, as we saw in the Kansas game last week. But it feels like Scott Satterfield hot seat talk. We're not really doing it. And they're a couple of plays away from winning that first game against Nebraska.
Oh, yeah.
Too.
Nebraska was lucky to get out of there with a win.
So Cincinnati's a team, I think, now at this point in the season, like, we should start paying attention to the Bearcats, and we are here.
Yeah, I think they're a team that, the resume isn't going to knock your socks off. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure what to make of Kansas. I think I'm overrating Kansas a little bit.
Yeah, maybe.
In my head.
Me too.
But that was an impressive win. It was kind of a crazy game. The corner situation is going to be a problem for Iowa State. This game feels like it's going to be extremely high scoring, which you maybe wouldn't think on paper. But I'm going to go with Cincinnati here to knock off undefeated Iowa State. Iowa State, we've talked about them. If you're ranking like undefeated P4 teams, I do not believe in. Iowa State's kind of high on that list right now. When you watch them, you're just kind of like, I need to see a little more from you guys.
They're right. I don't remember what they are in the AP, but it's them, Missouri, and Vanderbilt are all like right there together. And you kind of want to see if they'll play much better competition. Iowa State won't really, but Vanderbilt and then Missouri both have Alabama the next 2 weeks. So we'll find out.
We're going to learn a lot about them. But no, I'm going to take Cincinnati to win this game.
The other thing about Iowa State, they're now down both starting cornerbacks. ACL injury to John Tez Williams out for the year. Those are two very good cornerbacks that Iowa State had that they do not have now. And now you're going up against a quarterback who has been very good. I probably disrespected Iowa State last week, and they threw it back in my face with two of my picks. I had Arizona covering, and Rocco Beck hitting the under on passing. Neither happened. So I worried about picking against the Cyclones again, but I think I'm kind of buying into Cincinnati right now. And 1.5's pretty much a toss-up at that point. And you put Cincinnati at home.
This week, by the way, Chris. Yes. Friend of the show, G-Fed, doing 100 stadiums in 100 days. Are you aware that Nippert, you probably are, Nippert Stadium, just anybody can go on it, the field at any time,
Yeah,
basically. It's in the middle of campus. It's awesome. I did not know that until I went to a game there. Our guy G-Fed, who, if you're not familiar with him on YouTube, is very entertaining, just spent the night on the field at Nippert. So I have to think some of that energy carries over this weekend. So, yeah, I like the Bearcats.
Yeah, I went there a couple times in the 21 season. Very cool setup in stadium. Right in the middle of campus. You can walk through it on the way to class. One of the oldest stadiums in college football. They've upgraded a couple times. Very cool place. Shout out to Nippert Stadium. We think that gets you over the edge. You beat Iowa State. All right, Big Ten game of the week here. Michigan State at Nebraska, 4:00 Eastern, FS1. Nebraska is an 11.5 point favorite. We have talked about Nebraska a bit on this pod. We have not talked about Michigan State. And I think now is the time to kind of have that discussion. They are 3-1 with 3 wins. They beat Boston College in overtime, beat Youngstown State and Western Michigan. Then they played USC close for like 3 quarters-ish, and then USC pulled away. The note here, Aiden Childs, former 4-star quarterback at Oregon State, followed Jonathan Smith to Michigan State. He's figured it out. He has 16 touchdowns and 1 interception in his last 7 games at MSU. He was 11-11 in the previous 9. Turnovers were a huge problem last season. He has fixed that. He looks a lot more comfortable. He's a big-time player who should get some more attention. The problem with Michigan State, the defense is not good. They are 108th in yards per play allowed. They cannot get pressure without blitzing. And there are some MSU fans, for whatever reason, who want Jonathan Smith fired. Like they're out on him. I don't get that right now at all. But David, any thoughts on the Spartans?
What is the case for not liking what you've seen from Jonathan Smith? I mean, they were underwhelming last year, but you inherited a borderline smoking crater situation. They've been competent-ish this year. We'll find out kind of what they are. But what's the case for that?
The defense is not good, but also like people just don't like his very blasé demeanor. For anyone who's ever met Jonathan Smith,
that's what you heard. I mean,
he's the most normal guy you've ever met. Never gets too high, never gets too low. And I think the fans coming off of the really out there in your face Mel Tucker era don't like going back
there, too in your face.
Yeah, maybe. Don't like the kind of under the radar, keep quiet type of guy. Like they want some of it. I went on a Michigan State podcast last week, Locked On Spartans. We talked about this. I was like, the case to fire Jonathan Smith right now is insane. Like there are fans who want him to go take the UCLA job. And to that I say, like, this team right now is better than it was a year ago. That's improvement. It may not be as much improvement as you want yet, but it is getting better. The offense is working. The guys they brought in to transfers are working. The defense is not. They do have a top 30 recruiting class coming in. They're doing pretty well in the recruiting space. You got to
know what the 4-year average was for Mel Tucker? What was he sitting at? Because they made a big deal. They're going after 5 stars. They got a few big time transfers, but what overall? Do you remember what the class numbers were?
It was higher. I want to say top 20, maybe ish.
But it's not like in another stratosphere, but like better.
But those guys weren't hitting, or at least they didn't have enough time to hit. Most of the guys that worked for Mel Tucker were either holdovers from Mark D'Antonio, or they were transfers like Kenneth Walker. That 2021 Kenneth Walker season is such an anomaly for the last like 8 years of Michigan State football. He carried them to a top 5 rating at one point in that season when they beat Michigan. But then everything else Mel Tucker did was not great. Smith took over a very tough spot. It's getting better. I think this is one of those games though. If you go to Nebraska, get your socks blown off, then you start to like, all right, things got to be better. This game's interesting because Nebraska cannot stop the run at all, as we saw against Michigan. We saw it against Cincinnati. I'm very curious how Michigan State is able to move the ball in this game. Thoughts on the game and the matchup?
Points. I don't know how good Michigan State is, but I definitely don't think that Nebraska is good enough to just be pushing around Big Ten teams and winning games by a lot over, like middle of the road Big Ten teams. Too many points. Michigan State here. Give me the Spartans.
I'm going to go Michigan State too. I do think Dylan Raiola has a big game for him, but I think Michigan State keeps it close, maybe like 10.
Yeah.
All right. Now we're going to talk about Virginia at Louisville. Louisville, a 6.5 point favorite. Games at 3:30 Eastern, ESPN2. We got Virginia, who just beat Florida State. They're 4-1. Louisville's 4-0. We're going to talk about the Cardinals here for a second, who David just feels kind of about in general.
I will say the equipment staff I'm high on. Very high on the equipment staff. Still waiting to see on the football team.
Yes, he talked to the ball boy. Story on The Athletic about that whole thing with Pitt. Great story. Loved it. Nothing really jumps out about Louisville in the stats. They're basically really solid in all three phases. The big headline is Isaac Brown, the running back, 8.1 yards per carry. Really good player. Chris Bell, the wide receiver, has also been solid. Miller Moss has been like okay, not great, but like okay. So I think Louisville, this is one of those games where winner of this game, you start talking like ACC picture.
Yeah.
Because this is probably Virginia's toughest game the rest of the season. They don't play Miami, SMU, Clemson, and they already beat Florida State. So like if Virginia wins this to get to 5-1, there's a path. If Louisville's 5-0, there's a path. So a lot on the line in this game. Should be an interesting one. David, any thoughts?
Let down of the century here for Virginia. I mean, they're screaming at it. You have a Louisville team that comes off a pretty emotional win there themselves, but still not getting a lot of respect. Virginia, Chris, am I being too callous and too shrewd to believe that there feels like we've arrived sort of aura emanating from Charlottesville after last week?
Well, that's what happens when you beat Florida State. Your first big win in several years. I think that's natural.
Sure. Just a huge letdown spot. You go on the road to a really good team. I like Louisville to win this game and win it in a way that makes people just go, huh? Give me Louisville big here.
Louisville big. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's going to be close. I don't think Louisville has the skill to pull away. I'm going to say Virginia covers the 6.5. Don't know if they win, but I think we end up having a close game. And if you're going to give me 6.5 points, I'll take Virginia to cover.
Mm-hmm.
Washington at Maryland, 3:30 Eastern, BTN. We've talked about Washington a bit. We like Damon Williams. The Ohio State game was tough. I think Ohio State's just really good. But let's talk about Maryland right here. Maryland is 4-0. In the September Maryland thing is completely real because in August and September under Mike Locksley, Maryland is 21-5. But we are now in October where Locksley is 6-12. So we'll see if that falls off again. However, they do have 4-star, 5-star quarterback freshman Malik Washington, who looks like the real deal. 8 touchdowns, 1 interception, 2 rushing touchdowns. He has been a lot of fun, growing pains here and there, but they've got a guy. You know, you got that guy in recruiting. It was a big get. Obviously, you got to have to hold on to him. But another coach, Mike Locksley, felt like hot seat coming in, not much juice. They've got juice again. The defense is really good so far in SP+. You've got no Ohio State, no Penn State, no Oregon on the schedule. If there was ever to be a year you have some sort of breakthrough, it's this year. What do you think?
Can we talk about the Malik Washington thing here briefly?
Yes.
Because I was not really aware of him. Hadn't really watched Maryland. I watched them last week against Wisconsin, and I'm watching him. He had a couple throws in that game that I'm just like, whoa, like, okay, like this guy is legit. Big kid, fast guy. He's from the DMV. Chris, I don't want to be this guy, but it's hard for me to see them hanging on to them. And I don't know that we want to talk about this coming into this game necessarily, but like watching them, it's just like Maryland, you're gonna have to like go beat down Under Armour's door to keep a hold of this guy because he's incredible. I don't know what to make of Maryland. Like I said, the resume, they haven't really played anybody. I don't know how good Wisconsin is. I'm leaning Washington here on the road. Maryland feels kind of fakey to me, but I don't know here. I'm gonna go with the Huskies covering, but not by a ton.
Yeah, I mean, it's become a lot easier now in terms of players. Schools are now spending their money to keep their best players. You're not seeing many stars go into the portal. And Maryland, you had the basketball coach leave because he thought he wasn't getting enough support there because it's going to football. I think Maryland will do whatever it takes to keep Malik Washington there. And as it should be. That's good for the sport. I do think Maryland's improved. I do like their path to having a really good season. I'm just going to take Washington here as well. It is a cross-country trip, which I don't love, but I still think Washington's a very solid team. I think Ohio State was just a juggernaut in that game. 6.5. I'll go Washington to cover. I think this game could really go either way. I think it's a coin flip game. In that case, if you're going to give me the points, I'll take Washington getting 6.5. But for the game, I'll just say Washington as well. Mississippi State at Texas A&M on 7:30 Eastern SEC Network. Texas A&M a 14.5 point favorite.
Disrespectful.
We haven't actually talked about the Aggies a ton since that Notre Dame game, but they're actually not running the ball that well for the team we thought was going to have like the best rushing offense in the country. They're 68th in yards per carry. Part of that is playing, Auburn and Notre Dame and whatever. Marcel Reed, not a high completion percentage, but solid yards per attempt. What do you think about this?
Mississippi State is just solid. I mean, A&M is really good, but A&M's not just going to blow teams away, especially like a pretty competent Mississippi State team that I'll be interested to see how they respond. They didn't have any losses like this last year under Jeff Lebby. Chris, not only did Mississippi State lose every SEC game, they lost every SEC game by double digits last year. I think there's a pretty strong case to be made that they probably should have beat Tennessee last week. They couldn't get the job done, but they're pushing teams. A&M getting this much respect is wild. So I don't really get that. I don't know where that's coming from. Give me the Bulldogs and the points here. I do like the Aggies. Marcel Reed, he was a guy that a lot of people really liked coming out of high school. He was really high on Tennessee's board. Ole Miss really liked. I think he was committed to Ole Miss at one point, and then A&M kind of came in late. He'd liked him to be a little bit taller and bigger, but it hasn't really mattered. So I like A&M to win this game, but that's too many points, even on the road. Yeah,
I'm going to go Mississippi State as well, just because it's a lot of points for a team I think is solid. A&M obviously played Auburn very close last week. And this would be classic Texas A&M letdown. It almost happened last week. So like when I was at Ari's house last week to watch the games for the second half of the day, one of Ari's friends came over. He's an A&M fan, and he was just very down about the win, even though they won and beat Auburn. And it was just,
you're not allowed to be down on any win if you're A&M. I'm sorry, guys.
So I think they're just like preparing for it not to be great, but I'm going to go Mississippi State covers as well. We may actually need to talk about the Bulldogs board. They look improved across the board. That's good. A lot of points.
They added a ton. First of all, I don't know how people let them get Fluff Bothwell. Like, if you were
from South Alabama,
the G5 backs last year, he was as good as just about anybody. It's like him, Ahmad Hardy, Mekhi Hughes. Like, that was kind of the 3 G5 backs that you were like, maybe I'm forgetting somebody, but all I know is watching Fluff Bothwell. You're forgetting
Ashton Genty.
Well,
I'm just saying. Yeah, I know what you're saying.
Think of him as a G5 back. He was just like so elite. But anyway, like Fluff Bothwell last year was incredible, and I had forgot that Mississippi State got him. And man, just like he's been huge for them. He's been great. Yeah.
We'll see if Mississippi State can get to a bowl game. If they can, that's a huge step forward in Jeff Lebby's second year. All right, just a couple more here. Duke at Cal, 10:30 Eastern, ESPN. Duke a 2.5 point favorite at Cal. Cal is 4-1. They're obviously led by star freshman 5-star quarterback Jaron Keave Songapulitele.
That's good, Chris.
Keep saying that you can use JKS for short. They obviously had that huge, incredible letdown against San Diego State a couple of weeks ago. That was just like, whoa. So
that's one of the weirdest games I've watched all season.
Yeah. But Songapulitele is playing very well. He's making NFL throws. The receivers have had some bad drops at times. And Cal doesn't have Miami, FSU, or Clemson on the schedule. So a path to a bowl game and maybe a couple more wins is certainly there. Cal's an interesting team. Like Justin Wilcox, another coach we thought coming in on the hot seat, probably going to get fired. But Ron Rivera is running the program basically. But instead, like they've got an administration that is now committed to football in a way that they didn't a couple of years ago. And that matters. You got the same thing in Virginia. A lot of like Tony Elliott, Mike Loxley, Justin Wilcox, these are coaches. We all thought hot seat, it ain't going to work, but they've all found a quarterback. They all invested in getting some key players. And this is where you raise the floor of the sport sometimes. I think it's really interesting. I'm going to pick Cal here, getting 2.5 at home against Duke, flying cross country for a 10:30 game. Give me Cal on that.
Wrong team's favored in this one. So I was not aware of this dynamic where Justin Wilcox's team sort of play to the quality of their opponent. Like the worse the opponent, the worse they seem to play. I think I had missed this dynamic because when I think of Cal football, I mean, I think of them going toe to toe with Miami. Should have beat Miami last year. Yep. You had that crazy comeback. Michael Irvin is on the side barking. It was a very entertaining ball game. Duke's a pretty good team. And I think Cal rises to the occasion here and wins this game outright. You mentioned the cross-country stuff. I think you're going to get a great game here from JKS, and Cal wins this thing outright.
We're agreeing on almost everything here, except for Texas, Florida, I think, or Miami, Florida. There's only been like
I haven't really been keeping track.
Disagreed here. Yeah, so we need to be different if we're going to separate from each other, but we'll see. Got a last one here. Tulsa at Memphis. 8 p.m. Eastern, ESPNU. Just wanted to lay this out here because Memphis is 5-0. They're a 20.5 point favorite. This is a team we need to get in that discussion for American Championship Group of 5 spot playoff. Sutton Smith, the running back, 7 yards per carry. Brendan Lewis, a quarterback transfer from Nevada. It's been solid enough. 11 total touchdowns, 2 interceptions. They beat Arkansas last week because they were able to get that turnover, or 2 weeks ago because they were able to get that turnover very late. Just want to say, keep an eye on Memphis. Very good team this year. They will be in that Group of 5 mix. We don't need to pick this game as 20.5 points. Tulsa did just beat Oklahoma State. But anyway, Memphis, we're aware of you. And also wanted to shout out big Conference USA game, Western Kentucky versus Delaware. I think both teams have one loss on the season. Big Conference USA game there. So we'll see.
When did the Tuesday night Sunbelt CUSA game start? I'm ready for that.
It starts this month. It might be next week. They sent me, I got a t-shirt in the mail from Conference USA that has the schedule on the back of it. I believe it's mostly October is when they do it because the MAC does November. So we'll have stuff to kind of talk about there as well. All right, last thing here. We forgot to do it last week, but I want to keep doing it. Highest and lowest point totals of the week. And if we think they'll go over or under. Highest total of the week, we've actually got a tie. 63.5, Notre Dame, Boise State, and Texas State, Arkansas State. Both of these games, Notre Dame and Texas State are pretty heavily favored. Over or under 63.5, David, go.
Notre Dame, Boise goes under. Texas State, Arkansas State goes over. San Diego State, Colorado State goes under.
Oh, yeah, by the way, the lowest right there is Colorado State at San Diego State on Friday night. The total is 40.5 points. I'm going to say under for that one. For those who missed it, San Diego State beat Northern Illinois 6-3 last week.
Have we had a sub 40 yet? I don't think we have, right?
I've only started doing this the last.
Well, I know, but if I see a sub 40 or a over 70, I always just sort of make note of it. And I haven't seen a sub 40, but I could have missed it. I don't really pour over it quite as heavily, but either way.
All right, and with that, we're going to end the show the way we always do. And that is by remembering some guys.
It's better than this. Guys being dudes.
And since it's Florida State Miami week, I'm going to go with former Florida State quarterback Chris Ricks, the only 4-year starter in school history, 2000 to 2004. Very solid, good college player. And one of the more notable things is he missed the 2003 Sugar Bowl after he overslept and missed an exam. Subsequently, he was suspended for the Sugar Bowl by Bobby Bowden. I think his dad was in the hospital, and he said that it was weighing on his mind or whatever. He also was once fined for using an unauthorized handicap sticker or parking in a handicap spot or something.
What is this, Chris? Old old trouble. What are we doing here?
I'm saying,
You got a beef with Chris Ricks?
No, these are the things that used to be like scandalous in college football. That somebody missed a class and you missed the Sugar Bowl for it, or missed an exam and you missed the Sugar Bowl for it. That is not happening anymore. But Chris Ricks, again, that's the period where I got into college football, and he was the FSU quarterback. It felt like he was there forever because he was, and his name was Chris, and I liked that. So Chris Ricks, we remember you, and don't worry too much about those weird disciplinary things.
Chris Ricks also a very fun name to say. I'm sticking with a quarterback who I guess would have been in the Big East, right? But is technically in the ACC now. ACC legend Tyler Palko from Pitt. Just like a solid quarterback, a fun guy to watch. I don't know that I would call him traditionally good. I was looking at his numbers. He did throw for 3,000 yards in 2004 as his first year as a starter, but then never hit that point again. Threw for 25 touchdowns as a senior. Was like serviceable, but very much a quarterback that I remember that was pretty fun. And shout out to Tyler Palko. And by the way, coached by Walt Harris. I don't have a lot of memory. I feel like that's just like a memory hole that I just have no recollection of. He's quarterback coach for Ohio State, coach Pitt. Was at Stanford for 2 years, and then went to Akron for a season, and then went to California, Pennsylvania for an OC in 2010. Hasn't coached since then.
Yeah.
I saw that name and I was like, I have no recollection of Paul Harris. So I remember one guy, Tyler Palko. I'm sorry, I don't remember your head coach.
When I think of that mid 2000s Pitt, dark gold, darker navy blue with the kind of shiny gold 3D
it's
with
Sean
the
McCoy time.
The mountain looking. I think of LaShawn McCoy, and I think of Tyler Palko. So that's a good deep cut. Good remembering.
Bad uniforms. The new Pitt uniforms are much, much better.
Yeah, I would agree with that for sure. We put out the call for Remember Some Guys nominations to the listeners, and we got a bunch. So thank you for sending those in. We will get to these over the next several shows, but bunchformationpod@gmail.com for your nominations. Ryan Mile, who says, thank you guys for doing the show. It's really entertaining. I appreciate you guys highlighting the G5. As an Ohio Bobcat season ticket holder, I'm happy with the recent success of the program. For my Remember Some Guys, I'm going to go back to my first QB, my QB when I was a student at Ohio, and that was Tyler Tettleton.
Oh, man.
He was an absolute beast in the early 2010s, and of course led Ohio to the big win against Penn State in 2012. Also won the program's first bowl game in 2011. Prototype dual threat QB.
Yeah,
thrives.
I miss these. We're not gonna have these 4-year MAC guys anymore because they're all gonna get called up. They're gonna get the Curtis Rourke, tap to the major leagues. Didn't Tyler Tettleton go on OU staff at one point? I feel like he was an analyst on Oklahoma staff.
Yes, he was a graduate assistant at Oklahoma in 2015 to 17. Currently the assistant wide receivers coach with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And also notable to me, he is the son of former MLB player Mickey Tettleton, who played for the Detroit Tigers. To bring it all back,
if you say so. Hey, he gets to coach Travis Hunter for 20% of his week. That sounds fun.
Chris Ricks, Tyler Palko, Tyler Tettleton. We remember you. That's going to do it here. I will be live Saturday night on the Bunch Formation YouTube channel to recap the day's events. Should be a fun one. Dave's going to be at the Ludacris concert. And then next week, we got some big games coming up. It's going to be a fun week. Hope you enjoyed the show. Thank you, everybody, for listening and for reaching out. For David Ubben, I'm Chris Vannini. We will talk to you as a group on Monday.
And if you're going down to Tallahassee, bring back the turnover chain. Other side. Bring back the turnover chain. Do it.